Okay, guys, good evening. Thank you guys for coming. This is my signature assessment for my EDOL647 class, and my presentation tonight is on corporal punishment versus student achievement. And I talked to Dr. Baldwin about, since I'm on maternity leave, about how my video will be a little bit different tonight. So I don't have my actual PLC group, but I have lots of wonderful friends that have volunteered to help me. So I'm going to let them kind of introduce themselves and kind of say what they do in their career. They all have children, so they can weigh in on the corporal punishment policy at Albany Elementary. So just go ahead and start with any of you ladies that want to go and introduce yourselves.
I'm Lori. I teach high school at Clinton County High School, and I also have 2 children.
I'm Nikki. I work as a payroll clerk at a local business, and I have 1 child.
I'm Katie. I'm a PTA, and I have 1 child.
I'm Sonia. I am a PTA, and I also have 1 child.
Okay. And I'm your presenter. I'm Shannon Shear, and like I've already said, this is for EDOL647, our signature assessment. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I have a few things laid out that I'll just pass out to you guys. Data collection, I'll get talking about that, and you all don't have copies of it because I only highlighted one, but you can pass that around. And then also, if you want to go ahead and get started on Albany Elementary, or actually our whole district, this is our code of conduct, so you can look at that. And then this is just for Albany Elementary, the student handbook, what every student has to go through and then eventually sign that they agree to do so. So I'll leave those there and we'll get started. Okay, Albany Elementary does implement corporal punishment. It's it's kind of dying down. There's not as many states now that are actually doing corporal punishment. But what we do at our school is, the beginning of the year, every student gets a packet. And in that packet, there's a form in there, and parents can sign to have their child spanked, or they can sign to say no, they do not want their child spanked. Most of the time, parents will have a little end note saying, you may spank my child, but I want to be called first or notified first. And at that point, they can say, no, I don't feel like that was the thing that they are spanked for, and then sometimes I've had parents say, you wait right there, I'm coming in to spank him myself or her. So there's all kinds of different little notes that we kind of go along with, and they're really kind of lenient about that. But for the most part, majority, it's just a yes or a no, if they can or if they cannot. So every student in the school building has to return it upon enrolling into the school system. And if a parent signs the form requesting it to be excused, then of course there is some other punishment that takes place. We have a timeout room here, or of course they can do in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension, and that's just kind of depending on, how severe their punishment needs to be. Teachers at the school building, their perception about corporal punishment right now is that students do not get it enough. So your all's opinion right now, as a parent, what do you think about kids these days in society? Do you think that they're not being spanked enough? Are you totally against spanking? Do you spank your own children? Just kind of one at a time, just kind of weigh in on about how you guys feel about corporal punishment, whether it's at home, and I know some of you all have kids in school right now enrolled, and some of you all will have that in the future. So do you think that you'll sign that form? Just give me a little bit about how you feel about corporal punishment.
I do spank my children, and I didn't have the option necessarily because Mason's still just in kindergarten, but I give them full permission to spank him if it warrants it, but I want to be notified first, and I may come and do it myself.
Yeah.
Whenever he's old enough, I don't think I'll sign to let them spank her because that's something I want to be the person doing it. I may change my mind when she gets a little older, but right now I think I would say no, but I'm going to handle our punishment. It's going to be worse than what you all are going to do probably, so in my own way,
Yeah, we get a lot of that. I've actually witnessed parents coming in and spanking their child themselves. So,
Right, yeah.
what do you think, Katie?
Well, Addie's not school age yet, but when she gets there, I'll definitely be checking yes. And then depending on the severity of it, if it's bad enough, I'll probably come in and right after them, spank her as well.
I will most definitely sign the paper for Amelia to be spanked. I want to be notified so that I can come spank her again, and then later on when she gets home, her daddy's going to spank her again.
And a lot of us too, our little ones that are in childcare, we give our, our babysitter permission to punish them, whether it be timeout or the severity, she has permission to spank them.
Okay. Well, I also believe in corporal punishment. I think that even after we get into my findings and things, as a parent, I'm a firm believer. Growing up, I was spanked, and I just feel like nowadays, if we don't have some kind of power over them, they're going to run away with us. And we already, and I think about this a lot because when they do get spanked, it's something that they have to be pulled out and somebody else has to do it. So they already in 4th grade, which is where I'm teaching, they already make that connection that, well, you don't have the power. You have to go get somebody else to take care of my discipline problem. So I really hate to send a kid to the office anyways, just because I feel like I lose some of my power over them. So I like to say that for a last option, but as a parent side, absolutely. I believe in it. But all of us in 4th grade, before conducting it, believed in corporal punishment. And the majority of teachers in the whole school building believe that students do not receive punishment enough. And in return, and that's where we're kind of going with the corporal punishment, their academics are failing. Now, it's known that, when you have a child with behavior problems, their academics are going to go down. So what my whole study was about is how it will affect them on K-Prep and on math scores. If it does affect them at all, will we see, and what I mean by affecting is, when they take the K-Prep test, students that can be spanked, do they score higher? Or are they, when I say higher, I mean, at Albany Elementary, we like everybody to be at proficient or above. So, and for you guys that are not teaching, there's, novice, proficient, distinguished, and apprentice. And I said them all up backwards, but it's okay. Novice at the end, distinguished at the top. We want them to be right under distinguished, proficient, or above. For maths testing, we like them to be 50th percentile and above. And that percentile has actually went up just since I've been teaching. We used to catch all the kids that were 25th percentile and below. Now they even catch, now they're saying if they're not at 50th, they're high risk. So what I wanted to do was take their scores, and of course for K-Prep, for you guys that don't know how it works, we don't get those scores until the next school year, usually around fall. We're just now starting to receive those scores back. So I had to take all of 4th graders is what I did the study on, but I had to take their K-Prep test from 3rd grade, and they're tested in math and in reading. And for maths, I did maths for their 4th grade, and they're tested in math, science, language, reading, and language usage. So I caught all of those ones that were 50th percentile and above, and the ones that were not. And then I just wanted to see if it made a difference, just if they could be spanked. Not if they were spanked. I didn't actually look to see if they were spanked, just to know that if that form was enough to say, hey, my parents, my guardians have signed the form, and that's enough for me to do well on, or if it even affected them. So this slide's just going to kind of walk through about what I've already covered about how my perception is. When I first started the research, I really feel like that form would be enough for some, and I feel like the students that can be spanked are going to score higher than the students that cannot be. So really quickly, What do you guys think? Just not knowing anything about it, not seeing any of the data yet, what's your opinion? Do you think that it's gonna matter if they can or can't be spanked? Do you think that they're going to score better on tests? Not any kind of behavior-wise. Don't think about that. Just strictly academics and strictly the K-Prep test and the maths test. Do you think that they will score higher if they have permission to be spanked? Just round table. I'll start with you this time, Sonia.
It's a possibility, because they'll still have that fear if they know that that option is there.
You think so, Pam?
Yeah, I think there'll be a correlation. I think if they know that they have to pay attention and be on task or the consequences could be a spanking, then they're more likely to stay focused and to score better.
I think kids who do have the threat of being spanked instills something in them that they are expected to do their best at all times, no matter what it is.
That's what. And Lori, what about the high school? Do they do the same thing? Do they have the corporal punishment forms, or do they even do corporal punishment at the high school?
We do no corporal punishment whatsoever. Our first is put them in school suspension, timeout as we call it, for a period, and then for a day, and then depending on the severity, it's pretty bad for you to get out of school suspension, but we don't even use that as an option, which I've always said is funny because little kids who are still learning how to behave, we use corporal punishment with them at the elementary school level. But by the time a child gets to me and is anywhere from 15 to 19 years old, they should know how to act, but yet we don't use corporal punishment with them. Seems kind of like it should maybe be reversed a little bit.
See, I didn't know, and I'm not sure even about the early childhood though. You said Mason did have a form.
No, he
did not. Okay, so I'm assuming then early childhood is not enforcing that. And I'm not sure about the middle school. So Albany Elementary may be the only school at this time. Does anybody know about the middle school?
I think that
You think that they do? Okay, so possibly them. But all of you all had the same perception, and that was my hypothesis, I guess you could say, before I started and looking at any of the research. I just thought, you know, if they had that fear of it, then they would be kind of more on their A game versus because, you know, I've got kids who come in the second, third day of school and turn in these forms and say, well, my mom said, no, you can't spank me. You know, they already have that kind of little attitude. And stuff like that does affect their academics.
And this isn't involving like Kentucky schools, but my husband teaches in a Tennessee school and at the high school level, and the teacher can spank at any time without, he does not have to contact the parent, he does not have to do anything other than he's allowed to discipline the kid right then and there. I mean, like every teacher has a paddle in their room, and I mean, I think that does give the kids more of a sense of, you know, okay, I gotta act right, or, you know.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, Nikki, because I did my student teaching in Tennessee, and I mean, some of the teachers carried their own paddles in their back pockets, and those kids walked the line. Their behavior was like nothing I've ever. They're on their A game over there, but because they know. They'll be, and it's automatic too. It's not a long wait. The problem that I have here is, you know, they're pulled out of my class where they need to be, first of all, to go up there and to get a talking to, and then to receive whatever type of punishment. And then if it's time out, then they're pulled out all day from our class, sometimes for multiple days. If it's out of school, same thing. They're gone from the classroom where they needed to be in the first place, and therefore academics are going down.
And he's gone it's in his third year now, and he's never paddled a student. But he said, you know, there's been times where he can say, here's the threat, it can be immediate, and then the behavior issue stops, and that's it. Like, he's never actually had to act on it, but it's right there, and they know it could happen like that, so it is a behavior problem.
The results of the evaluation, what we plan to do when I do show the video to my real PLC group, we are planning, right now we actually created a committee the other day at school-wide to do some type of discipline program for the entire school, because our school is in desperate need. Every year, I think the first grade's coming in worse and worse, and because I think that every teacher doesn't have the same expectations, you know, they could come to me in 4th grade, which is the last grade here, and, you know, have a teacher in 1st, 2nd, 3rd who was pretty laid back and let them do anything. And when I get here, you know, I'm the big bad wolf and I sound awful, but expectations need to be across the board so that these kids are not, you know, and they get to choose their room. And that makes just a big mess of things. You can tell the kids walking down the hallway of whose rooms that they're in. But if we had some type of program where the whole school was involved, then it would be, you know, everybody would know from grade to grade, from class to class. And we have some things in place, like walking down the hallway. Mr. Armstrong, our principal, wants everybody on the 2nd full block in a straight line with no talking. And that's something supposed to be, you know, school-wide. However, some teachers don't enforce it, which, like I said, makes a huge difference. So our PLC is working on giving suggestions for a whole school to help with our discipline, and hopefully that'll help with our academics as well. My research questions for this project was, when conducting an outcome-based evaluation on 4th grade math test scores in reading, math, science, and language arts, does the achievement of students receiving corporal punishment when compared to the achievement of students not receiving corporal punishment prove or disprove the study's hypothesis? And you guys have already kind of weighed in on what you all think. I've told you guys what I thought about my hypothesis. My second question is, when consulting key participants, and these participants would be like for you all tonight, stepping in as my PLC group, and parents of this community. I've also asked the majority of my colleagues about their opinions. I've talked to Mr. Armstrong, our principal, and Ms. Connie Wallen, which handles all of our discipline as our vice principal. So those are my key participants. When consulting with them about my question 1, what kind of evidence explains how corporal punishment policy is positively related to higher student performance as measured by MAPS? And what I mean is, if corporal punishment is not affecting student scores, then what I want to know is what does. So if it's you know, not going to prove that I'm right, or, you know, what we all thought, then what actually is the biggest, has the most effect on these kids. Now, I did have to do review of literature, which basically just means that I've looked up a lot of documents and seen kind of what kind of literature was out there on corporal punishment versus student achievement. I'll just tell you, the literature was really hard to find because everybody just kind of wants to take a stance when I look through the literature. Either they agreed with corporal punishment or they didn't. But I didn't find a lot on how it actually related to student achievement. But there was a few things that I put up here interesting. One study found that 51% of parents that they interviewed supported the use of corporal punishment in schools. 34% of those parents believed that it would improve their child's behavior, and 20% felt that it would improve their child's academic performance. So there wasn't a big correlation there with academic performance versus the corporal punishment. Another study talked about how it was viewed by teachers. Corporal punishment can be viewed as behavior management mechanism that is quick and easy for educators to get back on the main focus, which is teaching. And I've already kind of weighed in on that. I don't think actually that I wouldn't agree with that statement or that literature. I don't think it's quick. Maybe if our school was more like your husband's, Nikki, where they could kind of just do it right then, because that would be quick and effective. But here, we don't have that kind of right to actually spank the child ourselves. So it is not quick and easy. And then lastly, the last study said that I investigated was reasons why educators use corporal punishment, and findings indicated that corporal punishment was found to be the easiest form of disciplining students. and that was just kind of another opinion. I don't know if I agree or disagree. As a parent, sometimes I think that's the easiest thing because I have a 2-year-old, and sometimes time out takes a lot more out of me than just to spank her. So sometimes it is the easiest form, but I don't know about teaching. And then I have, this was the 2004-2005 school year, so it's a little bit outdated. But you can see the white is actually all the states that have banned corporal punishment. So in those states, they are not allowed to do any type of corporal punishment. The red, and I know that's hard to see with the lights on, was students have, parents actually have, you know, the say-so there. So it's kind of like how we do it. And then corporal punishment is allowed in the dark color. And that has probably changed tremendously since that is, you know, 10 years old. Here is where we're going to get talking about the data collection. And I'll just kind of show you all what I've done, and then you can pass it around. But in the first column, I have every single student in the 4th grade. There's 108 students. You're not going to see any names. They're identified as student 1, student 2, and then, you know, all the way down the list. The first one is, the first box is their MAP scores in math, and you're going to see 3 numbers there, and that's going to represent fall, winter, and spring. The next one is maps for science. Then we have maps for reading and maps for language, and you're going to see those same 3 numbers. Those numbers aren't going to mean a lot to you guys, but the next column will. I've done just a yes or no. If they reach the 50th percentile by the last time they tested, which was in the spring. So if they've reached it, I've put yes. If they've not reached that goal, then I've hit no. The next one is K-Prep, and of course, we talked about how it had to be for 3rd grade. And they only test in reading and in math. And you're going to see the letter here if they were novice, apprentice, proficient, or distinguished beside each of those. And then the next box is, were they proficient or above? And it's just a yes or no. And it had to be on both tests. And the last box is, can they be spanked? Yes or no. And then I'll talk about the highlighting in just a second. So if you guys want to pass that around and take a look at that. And this slide just talks about what I've already covered with you guys, how I created that table. Those are all 4th grade students listed. There are 108 of them last year. I included MAP scores in those content areas we've covered and for the fall, winter, and spring. And then K-Prep scores from math and reading in 3rd grade are included. And then, of course, I indicated if they're 50th percentile on all scores, and if they are proficient or above. So just take a minute and pass through that. And then I'll talk about the findings. And actually, while you all are looking at that, Nikki, I'll go ahead with the findings. Basically, what I found is that my hypothesis was incorrect. It actually did not matter if the student could be spanked or not on these tests, on these assessments. So looking at the percentages, the students who were in the 50th percentile by spring, and I do mean every single content area that they tested in those 4 areas, 46 out of the 108 students were 50th percentile or above on all tests. Of those 46 students, 23 can be spanked, 23 cannot be spanked. So I thought that that was really interesting. It cut it half and half, which doesn't really weigh either way. It just tells me that there's no real difference. Then next we have the K-Prep if they're proficient or above in both areas, math and reading, and from 3rd grade, there were 40 students out of 108 that reached that proficient or above. Of those 40 students, 17 can be spanked and 23 cannot be spanked. So again, not a big difference there in numbers. And then I actually, just out of my own curiosity, wanted to see how many students scored 50th percentile on maps. or proficient above. They had to do both, and there were 33 out of 108 students who did that. And of those 33 students, 15 could be spanked, 18 cannot be spanked. So the numbers really kind of stood there, showing me that it really didn't make a difference if they could or could not be spanked. So I was really surprised by that. Then, after talking to some of my colleagues and those key participants, I asked for some advice of saying, hey, what do you guys think that is the biggest effect on them? And these were the ideas that they had given me. Our principal, Mr. Armstrong, actually said the number one thing that we can do is, of course, give extra love and attention, because whatever reason that they are needing to be paddled, they're just looking for, you know, some extra attention. So he said a lot of the times, you know, when teachers send them up, just to kind of take them into his office, he walks them around the building, and just kind of to have that one-on-one time with them kind of makes them feel a little bit more important and calms them down. So giving extra love and attention. Also, because there is no positive effect on the student achievement, giving students an outlet for their behavior. So we now have, of course, an art class and music where they can kind of channel their anger into that. And there's just different things you can do for different students. If you all notice, of course, I have a student who is off by himself. You can see his desk is out there, but he wants to be by the window. He works well by the window. He likes to look, he has to be standing up, which doesn't bother me, as long as he's, you know, working and on task and participating. But that's just something that he needs. So finding that thing that they will work for you best. Getting the parents involved, that would probably be my number one. Just keeping good communication with your parents. You know, there are some parents that I wouldn't know them if they walked in the door right now. And that affects their achievement hugely. If the parents don't care about their MAP scores, the K-Prep scores, they don't even know what they are, they don't even know when they're taking the test, they have never looked to see what their scores were in the past, that makes probably, I think, in my opinion, the biggest effect on the kid, because they're not going to care. Keep the classroom environment fun, keep the students moving. You know, we don't want a sit and get like you guys are doing right now. These kids just can't handle that. So we want them up, we want them moving, we want them participating with their tables and doing team building activities. And that just kind of keeps the behavior down, keeps them more focused. And of course, as a teacher, you need to state your expectations. These kids walk in my room, they know what I expect every single day. I can assess them very quickly. If somebody walks in through the door and they throw their backpack across the room, I know that they probably need a little moment with me, or, you know, something to channel that anger. Treat students with respect. You know, I always try and, you know, say respect is number one. When you have that, then you have everything. And don't expect me to treat you with respect if you're not giving it to me. But basically, they're always just looking for our approval. Even if they're acting out and being, you know, a little, and you just want to go and take them outside, but they really do still, at this age, really love you, and they want to impress you, and they want your approval, and that's what they're seeking for. Are there any other suggestions that I could add to this since corporal punishment is apparently not helping or has no effect, to get those scores up on achievement? Any other suggestions that you guys have that we could work on?
Now, on the high school level, we don't focus, of course, as much on punishment, but as far as test scores go, we reward. You get a silver, a blue, or a gold card, and that gives you certain privileges. And one of them, the biggest thing, is letting them leave during lunch and go to town and get lunch. And that's how I motivate my kids. You know, it doesn't have necessarily as much to do with behavior, but we had instated a good standing policy just last year. And, you know, if they are in ISS or they, you know, get in trouble or something, they lose privileges. You know, so we went more, I think, away from the corporal punishment and trying to go toward rewarding them and then taking privileges away.
And I could say, if I was in high school, I would love to. That would motivate me. If I got to leave for lunch, I mean, that would be awesome. And that's one of the things at this school that's so hard because, you know, I teach 4th grade. It's the last grade at this school. By the time we receive their K-Prep scores, those kids are gone to the middle school. We never get to, you know, go to them and be like, oh, my, you worked your tail off for me. You scored a distinguished, we're so proud. This is what I want to give you. We never get to do that. And these kids know that. They're like, you know, as I'm walking around and they're testing, they're like, you know, I've even heard the comment, well, you know, we'll be gone. What are you going to give me? You know, everybody in this world now, all the kids, they're, what are you going to give me? What do I get out of this? And I get that being, you know, young. They're looking for their reward. So basically in the conclusion, it just talks about how I was very surprised about those findings. But we are still working in our PLC about behavior at our school. And like I've already talked to you all, we created a committee school-wide, and hopefully I think the best thing that's going to help us is to get something school-wide where expectations are across the board for every teacher. I do have a future thought though, as in just because I'm still so shocked by the results. I would like to see how first, actually through 4th grade, which, you know, 3rd grade is when they start doing K-Prep, but 1st through 4th does MAPS testing, and they all do the corporal punishment form. So I would like to see if the numbers and the percentages stayed where there was no difference or barely a difference. So in the future, if I get some time to do some extra research, that's what I would like to see. Just to know for my own curiosity if it does make a difference. So, and there's again my final thought on 1st through 4th. And that is it. Do you guys have any questions? No? Well, I really appreciate you guys doing this for me, and you guys call in a favor anytime you need. Thank you.